All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into something pretty wild.
Oh, yeah.
Entropy.
It's a good one.
It is, and I think it's one of those things that can sound really intimidating,
Hmm.
but it's actually super fascinating once you kind of wrap your head around it. And you might be
Right.
thinking, like, okay, entropy, what day is that? Why
Yeah.
should I care?
Yeah.
But I think we're going to find out today that entropy is something that really pops up everywhere, you know,
Oh,
whether
absolutely.
you're talking about data science or information theory,
It's all over.
even like the way the universe works.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. And
Yeah, it's a big one.
it is a big one. And to help us on this journey,
Mm.
we're using a StatQuest video as our guide, which means we get to learn about entropy with chickens.
Chickens. You know who doesn't love learning with chickens?
I know.
Right.
That's what makes StatQuest so great is that they
Yeah.
really make these complicated topics so approachable. Yeah, I completely agree. I think their videos are amazing.
Yeah.
So walk me through this. Like, how do chickens help us understand this, pretty fundamental concept?
Yeah. So let's imagine you have a bunch of orange and blue chickens,
Okay.
and they're just hanging out in three different areas. Like, let's just call them area A, B, and C.
Okay.
And each area has a different mix of those chickens. So area A might have a ton of orange chickens
Okay.
with only like a couple blue chickens.
Okay. So mostly orange,
Yeah.
a few blue.
Exactly. While area B might be like more even mix.
Okay.
A good amount of both.
Gosh,
So
they're
we're
all
at-
mixed up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So then think about like the surprise factor.
Okay.
If you were to randomly pick a chicken from area A and it turned out to be blue,
Okay.
you'd be kind of surprised, right? Because there aren't that many blue chickens there.
Yeah, that would be pretty shocking.
Yeah. But if you pick an orange chicken, you wouldn't be surprised at all.
No, not at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Totally. So the less likely something is,
Yeah,
the more surprised we are when it happens.
exactly.
So is entropy basically just a measure of surprise then?
Well, it's definitely related to surprise. I think that's a good way to think about it.
Okay.
But there's a little bit more to it.
Mhm.
You see, it's tempting to say that surprise is just like the inverse of probability,
Okay.
right? The less probable something is, the more surprising it is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But mathematically, that doesn't quite work.
How come?
Well, okay, so think about a coin that always lands on heads.
Right.
So the probability of getting heads is 100%, or 1, right?
Yeah.
If we just use the inverse of the probability,
Okay.
the surprise of getting heads would be 1 divided by 1,
Okay.
which is just 1.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make sense, does it?
Well, no, not really, because you wouldn't be surprised at all. If
Exactly.
that coin landed on heads, I mean, that's...
Right, because that's all it does.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just doesn't really quite capture it.
So just using the inverse of probability
Yeah.
doesn't really capture the true essence of surprise.
Exactly.
Okay, so there must be a better way to measure it.
There is. And that's where logarithms come in.
Okay.
So instead of just using the inverse of the probability,
Okay.
we use the logarithm of the inverse.
Okay, now I know.
Now I know.
Logarithms
It's
can
like
sound a
maths.
bit scary.
They can be a little intimidating, yeah.
Hmm.
But they're not too bad.
Yeah, I'm sure we can break this down.
Yeah.
So help me remember.
Yeah, so basically a logarithm is just a fancy way of asking,
Okay.
what power do I need to raise a number to get another number?
Okay.
So for example, let's say we have the number 8.
Okay.
What power do we need to raise 2 to in order to get 8?
2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8.
Yeah, so it's 3.
So 3.
Exactly, because 2 multiplied by itself 3 times
Yeah.
equals 8.
Yeah.
The logarithm base 2 of 8 is 3.
Okay.
It's kind of like a mathematical code breaker in a way. Okay.
Like you're figuring out the secret code.
Okay, that makes it much clearer.
Yeah.
So by using logarithms,
Yes.
we're getting a more accurate measure of surprise,
Exactly.
especially in cases where like the probability is very high
Yes.
or very low.
Exactly.
But how do we actually go from this idea of surprise
Yes.
to the concept of entropy?
Yeah, so this is where that biased coin comes in.
Okay.
Remember that coin that lands on heads 90% of the time?
Okay, yeah. So it's weighted.
Yeah, it's weighted.
Okay.
So getting tails would be much more surprising
Exactly.
than getting heads, right?
Yes.
So you can actually use this logarithm stuff to calculate the surprise for each outcome.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
But what if we flip this coin, like, multiple times?
Yeah.
How do we measure, like, the overall surprise of a sequence of flips?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, so let's say you flip it 3 times,
Okay.
and you get 2 heads and a tail.
The total surprise of that sequence is just the sum of the individual surprises for each flip.
Okay.
So you add up, like, surprise of getting heads twice and the surprise of getting tails
Ah,
once.
okay, so you're just adding it up.
Yeah. But, what if you flip the coin 100 times?
Yeah, it's going to take forever.
Right. You don't want to calculate the total surprise for every possible sequence.
Right, okay.
That would take forever.
Yeah.
So this is where this concept of, like, expected surprise comes in.
Okay.
And this is where we arrive at entropy.
Okay.
Entropy is basically the average surprise you would expect over many, many coin tosses.
So instead of calculating the surprise for every single sequence,
Right.
we're looking at the average
Exactly.
over the long run.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it gives you one number
Okay.
that represents, like, the overall uncertainty or mixed upness of the
Got it.
system.
Gotcha.
So the higher the entropy, the more unpredictable or surprising the system is. So going back to our chickens, you can actually use entropy to quantify
Okay.
the differences in those chicken distributions.
So an area with like a more even mix of orange and blue chickens
Yeah,
would have a higher entropy than an area that was mostly one color.
exactly. You got it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and we don't have to dive into all the formal mathematical notation,
Just that.
but just know that it's based on this idea of average surprise.
Okay.
But what's really fascinating is that this idea of measuring surprise and uncertainty,
Yeah.
which we've been talking about with, these chickens and coins,
Right.
actually leads to these really profound insights about data
Okay.
and information and even the nature of the universe itself.
Wow. My mind is blown and we're just getting started.
I know, right? There's so much more to talk about.
This is awesome.
Yeah,
I am excited for part 2.
yeah.
Okay, so we're back and we're diving deeper into entropy. And in part 1, we talked about, how entropy helps us measure this, like mixed upness or uncertainty of a system. And we were using chickens and coins, which was super interesting.
Great visual, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great visual. And you mentioned that entropy plays a key role in something called information theory.
Mhm.
So can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so information theory, I mean, it sounds kind of abstract,
Yeah.
but it's basically a field that helps us quantify information
Okay.
and understand how it's transmitted and stored.
Okay.
And entropy is, like, right at the heart of it.
Okay, so how does it fit into the picture? I'm still trying to wrap my head around this idea that surprise and uncertainty can be measured.
Yeah.
Like they can have real-world applications.
Absolutely. And it's super interesting. Think about it this way.
Okay.
The more uncertain or surprising a message is,
Okay.
the more information it actually contains.
Okay.
So, like, if I tell you something that you already know,
Yeah.
it doesn't really convey much new information, right?
Right. Yeah.
But if I tell you something completely unexpected, that's much more informative.
Right.
It has more value.
I'm definitely more likely to pay attention if you're telling me something
Yeah,
that's surprising or unexpected.
exactly.
So a message with high entropy
Yeah.
carries more information
Yes,
because it's full of surprises.
precisely.
Okay.
And you can think about a message with low entropy as very predictable. So
Okay.
it carries less information.
Okay.
And we can use entropy to actually measure that information content.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for example, like a random string of letters
Yeah.
would have higher entropy
Yes.
than like a sentence in English.
Exactly.
Because the English sentence follows grammar rules,
Yeah, it has a structure.
so it's more predictable.
Exactly. So that random string of letters is full of those surprises.
Yeah.
And the English sentence has a lower entropy.
Because of the structure and predictability.
Exactly.
It's crazy how entropy is like helping us quantify
Yeah.
that difference
It's pretty amazing.
in information.
Yeah.
Wow, this is really making me see language in a whole new light.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
But you also mentioned that entropy is involved in data compression. So how does that work?
Yeah, that's another great example of entropy in action.
Okay.
So data compression is all about finding ways to represent information more efficiently, right?
Okay.
By exploiting patterns and predictability.
Okay.
And entropy gives us a way to measure that predictability.
Okay, so if a file has low entropy,
Yeah.
meaning it's highly predictable,
Yeah.
we can compress it more.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're essentially squeezing out that predictability
Okay.
to make the file smaller.
Gotcha.
So, like, compression algorithms are designed to find those patterns
Okay.
and redundancies so they can represent the same information using fewer bits.
So like a text file full of repeated phrases
Yeah.
would be a lot easier to compress
Yeah.
than like a music file
Yeah,
with lots of variations.
exactly. Because the music file would have higher entropy.
It's incredible to think that something is, I don't know, kind of mundane
Yeah.
as data compression is connected to this fundamental concept of entropy.
It really is. It's like this hidden force
Yeah.
that's shaping the way we store and transmit information.
It is, and it makes me wonder, like, where else does entropy pop up?
Well, it's not just about chickens and coins and computer files.
Yeah.
I mean, it has implications for the way the universe itself works.
Okay, now you're really piquing my interest here
Yeah.
because you mentioned the second law of thermodynamics
Yes.
in part 1, and that sounds like something I vaguely remember from high school physics.
Yeah, we'll keep it simple.
Okay.
But it basically states that the total entropy of a closed system
Okay.
can only increase over time,
Okay.
which means things tend to get more disordered
Okay.
or mixed up as time goes on.
So, like, my bedroom
Exactly.
naturally gets messier
Yes, that's a perfect example.
if I don't put in the effort to clean it up.
Exactly. Imagine you have a perfectly ordered room, right?
Yeah.
Over time, dust settles, things get moved around, and it inevitably becomes less ordered.
Unless you're like one of those super organized people who are constantly tidying up.
Yeah, but even then...
But even then, you're expending energy to do it.
Exactly. You're fighting against this natural tendency.
So even cleaning my room is contributing to the increase in entropy
Yes.
in the universe.
In a way, yeah. It's a pretty mind-blowing thought.
It really is. So what you're saying is that, like, the irreversibility of time
Yeah.
is a consequence
Yeah.
of this ever-increasing entropy.
It's one way to think about it.
Okay.
I mean, it's definitely a complex
Yeah.
and debated topic,
Of course.
but it really highlights how deep these implications of entropy go. I mean, it's not just about chickens and coins. It's woven into the fabric of reality.
Okay, so we started with chickens and coins, and now we're talking about the universe.
Right.
This is a lot.
It's a big concept.
So I got to ask, if entropy is always increasing, like, does that mean that the universe is just destined to end in, like, chaos and disorder?
That's a great question.
That sounds kind of bleak.
It does, and it leads us to, I think, some of the biggest mysteries of the universe.
Okay.
But before we go fully cosmic,
Okay.
let's bring it back down to Earth for a minute.
Okay.
And talk about how entropy is used in a field that's really changing the world, machine learning.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Because machine learning still feels like a mystery to me.
Yeah.
So how is entropy involved in that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back, and now it's time to connect entropy to machine learning,
Yes.
which honestly still feels kind of mysterious to me.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it's like really shaking things up in the machine learning world, so how does that work?
Well, entropy is really important for lots of machine learning techniques,
Okay.
especially when it comes to classification.
Classification, so like sorting things into different groups,
Exactly.
like spam, not spam.
Exactly.
Or like teaching a computer to recognize different kinds of flowers.
Yeah, anything where you're trying to put things into categories.
Okay, so that's classification.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Okay.
But how does measuring surprise and disorder help us organize things into these nice little categories?
Yeah.
Seems kind of counterintuitive.
So imagine you're building a decision tree.
Okay.
This is like a pretty common classification algorithm.
Okay.
And the goal is to create this tree-like structure where
Yes.
each branch represents a decision
Okay.
based on a particular feature of the data.
Okay, so if we're classifying emails,
Yeah.
one branch might ask, like, does this email contain the word free?
Exactly.
And depending on the answer, like, you go down a different path.
Exactly. So at each step of building this tree,
Okay.
we want to choose the feature
Okay.
that gives us the most information gain.
Information gain, is that where entropy comes in?
Yes, that's exactly where entropy comes in.
Okay.
Information gain basically measures how much entropy is reduced
Okay.
by splitting the data based on a particular feature.
So it tells you, like, how much more certain you are
Yeah.
after you make that split.
Yeah, like how much more information you gain from making that split.
Okay.
So a good split is one that reduces uncertainty,
Gotcha.
like significantly reduces the entropy.
So if splitting the emails based on the word free,
Yeah,
like, leads to a big drop in entropy,
yeah,
that means that knowing whether an email contains free
yeah,
is really informative for deciding if it's spam.
exactly.
Right.
And that's what the algorithm keeps doing.
Okay.
It keeps making these entropy-reducing splits,
Okay.
building the tree step by step.
So it can confidently classify the data.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's like entropy is guiding the algorithm,
It is, yeah, it's kind of cool.
helping it find the most informative features,
Yeah.
make the best decisions.
It's a very powerful tool.
Wow, so it's not just decision trees then.
No, not at all. It's used in lots of different machine learning techniques,
That's-
like calculating mutual information,
Okay.
which helps us understand the relationship between different variables. And it's used in these dimensionality reduction algorithms like TSNE and UMAP, which are great for visualizing data.
Wow. This is a lot.
Yeah, there are a lot of applications for entropy in machine learning.
It really seems like it's playing like this crucial role in AI.
Absolutely. And as machine learning keeps evolving,
Yeah.
I think we're going to find even more creative ways to use entropy to solve these complex problems.
This has been incredible.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
We started with chickens and coins.
I know, right?
And we were exploring the mysteries of the universe.
It's a big jump.
And now we're talking about artificial intelligence.
It's all connected, though.
It is all connected.
Yeah.
It really is amazing how this one concept can be applied to so many different things.
It really is.
So to all of our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for entropy.
A new perspective.
Yeah, I know I have one.
Yeah, me too.
It's not just some theoretical thing. It's a really fundamental principle that helps us understand the world around us.
Absolutely.
From the tiniest little data points to the biggest, like, cosmic scales.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So keep your brains buzzing, keep exploring.
Keep learning.
And we'll catch you on the next deep dive.